CPI reporting day is coming up fast, July 13th. We're only 2 days away. Buckle up.
Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. It is day 5, 6. We lost track of all the days in the RV. Tinfoil hat, episode number 18. We're talking about the big elephant in the room economically, globally, in the financial markets, even the alternative investing markets like sports cards, collectibles, cryptos, etc. It's the inflation stuff. If you're new here, please hit the big red button below the subscribe button. Coming out with just about daily sports card collectibles content. We're talking about all the ins and outs, including all the big picture finance stuff that could have an effect on what you're doing, buying, selling, collecting sports cards. Also connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad, and I'm also on the Twitter, the SportsCardDad. It is that time again, friends. We are 2 days away from another CPI report. It's really been kind of bad news over the last few months and trending towards more bad news. According to Morningstar, though, Morningstar had a report that we might be seeing a peak of inflation. We might be kind of seeing here's the highs, but they still have kind of a prediction in that 8% range, 8% plus, which is really, really high still. So the thought is that this is kind of like maybe the last month of it being really, really high, and then it starts to taper off. But of course, if it's 8% plus again, what's going to happen? Well, the assumption is that Federal Chairman Jerome Powell is going to continue on with rate hikes. And really, if we look at it, the thing that's kind of astonishing really is there's been such a reaction by markets because of these rate hikes, but they're still at such historical lows. They're still very, very low. Money is still cheap, essentially. Borrowing money is still really, really cheap. It's changing though. We're starting to see mortgage rates go up, and that will continue to happen most likely. So we will most likely see another interest rate bump that is coming after this report in the next couple of days. Powell said that he wants to see it taper off at 2%. So think about that. We're at 8% plus. He wants to see it at 2%, so they are aggressively pushing. And he has said in statements that, hey, the possibility of recession is worth it to keep inflation in check. And that is one thing when it comes to economics. And yes, I'm not Jerome Powell. I'm not Yellen. I don't have a PhD in economics from Yale, which, by the way, Yellen has a PhD in economics from Yale and did not see this coming a year ago. And I understand, there was outside factors, global factors, Russia moving into Ukraine, etc. But still, the writing was kind of on the wall. We printed trillions of dollars. The average person could kind of see this doesn't really feel right, but I digress. And so it looks to be that Powell is committed to really getting inflation under control, and kind of has to, even if it does mean recession, because our money being worth less, you can make more money, wages can go up, but it's a hidden tax, essentially, is what inflation is. If bread is $5 for a loaf, if a gallon of gas is $10 or whatever, then you can make six figures and your money just doesn't go far at all. Rent's going up. You can see how this is a problem. So they have to control it one way or the other. What does it mean for sports card prices? Could it have an effect? Well, one thing that I thought was kind of interesting is if you look at kind of what people did with crypto, with Bitcoin, or with collectibles, it was kind of thought of as a hedge against inflation, that these are they're different markets that are going to react differently potentially than traditional markets, stocks, bonds, real estate. But really, that hasn't been the case. They've actually fallen in line with traditional stuff. Stocks have gone down, crypto's gone down, sports cards have gone down. And you can say, look, there's outside factors in all of these markets as well. It's not just inflation, and that is true. But inflation and federal interest rates, they do have a big impact. Historically, we've seen that. That's not something that people have just made up here over the last year, a few years, whatever. That's just really been the case in general. So with huge card shows looming, the Dallas card show, the National, obviously I'm excited to be at the National, but that is really going to be such a huge show to kind of get an idea of where we are at from a sports card pricing standpoint. And one thing that is very interesting about the National that I haven't really heard talked about is you hear a lot of dealers are going to have to move off of prices, cards that they bought essentially at a high price, and now they're going to have to just come to terms with the fact that, hey, maybe they're not going to get the money back, that they paid in. But most of the dealers at the National are vintage dealers, and these are not necessarily dealers that bought during the height of the market. They've had inventory over a long period of time. So the thought that they are going to budge because they bought, Johnny Unitas rookie card at double what it is now, the reality is they might have already had that card for a long time, and they might have also acquired it raw and graded it. They weren't the buyers at the height necessarily. Maybe there's some cards here and there, but the thought that everybody bought high and just doesn't have any room to settle on it, I don't know if I really believe that. And it goes the same for modern cards as well. I think the dealers will have room. It's just going to depend on what do they want to move. What do they really want to get into? Do they really want to churn that inventory? And that'll be something that's fun to watch. Because no doubt there's going to be a lot of transactions, there's going to be a lot of action, probably a lot of a mix of trading and cash and all sorts of different things. But that's one thing I want to pay attention to while I'm at the National. So while I'll be there to obviously meet and network and do that, I'll be looking to buy cards and also just view kind of what's going on, try to do my best to take a lot of notes on what I'm seeing, because obviously I'll be one person in a zoo of people, and so I won't completely have the inside scoop, but I can at least report back as to what I saw. And so I'm going to spend a lot of my time there just viewing, just observing and seeing what I see, and then just reporting on that. So but guys, I think that the big question with a lot of the inflation news, whether we're talking about traditional or alternative investments, are the prices already baked in? If you look at crypto, for example, it's dropped dramatically. So that'll be the big thing. Okay, so let's just say the report comes out, it's 8.5%, they raise interest rates again. Crypto fall again, or was it already baked in? Did it already kind of crash down, assuming, hey, look, rates are going to be going up for the rest of the year? Same with sports cards, same with stocks, bonds, everything else. So that's going to be the thing to watch. Are we going to continue to see these drops as these reports come out? And then the second that we get a little piece of good news, does it all stabilize? Do prices go back up? Because there's some optimism. These are all kind of the fun things to track and watch, and so that's what we'll be paying attention to. But it's obvious, I think, that we're going to continue along the road of inflation is high, we're raising rates again. It's just going to boil down to how high are they going to raise them, how long is this going to go for, and then how much is it already baked in, and how much further downward for some of this stuff do we still have to go. There's a lot of people in my comments section, I can't really blame them, that are like, hey, look, we've got another 6 months, 12 months of this, of prices moving downward. Maybe not. We just have to kind of see how that all rolls out. One thing that is interesting and kind of fun for people that are buying vintage sports cards at the National is there is a ton of vintage at the National, which means there's a lot of competition among dealers. So does a dealer have to work with you on certain cards? They don't have to, but they have to keep in mind that they're not the only table with Mantles. They're not the only table with Mays. They're not the only table with Unitas and Bart Starr. I made the video, Bart Starr's on my target list. There's going to be a lot of Bart Starr rookie cards there. So I think it's who's ready to make deals and who's just okay not making a deal. We will find out. Let me know, guys, in the comments below. Is this inflation report coming out? Is it going to be positive, negative, some optimism? Do we still have a long way to go as far as price correction goes for some of these cards? Or do you think, hey, we're in like big buying opportunity time. This is the time and prices are going to come back up in the fall and into the spring of next year. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for another RV episode here today. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.